I believe the show was canceled peremptorily. It hurt the American viewing public, deprived the public of a very good, dramatic, informative show.
Asner donated to El Salvador's Medical Relief Fund in February 1982. His critically acclaimed program, Lou Grant, was canceled 3 months thereafter. The show was still outperforming several of its competitors, despite CBS's claims that viewership had fallen. Kimberly-Clark and other corporations quietly removed their commercials as conservative organizations coordinated boycotts. Concerned sponsors called CBS President William Paley personally. Despite the network's claims to the contrary, nearly everyone was aware that politics was involved. What CBS does not want you to know about this is this. Kansas City, Missouri was the site of Asner's birth on November 15, 1929. His parents emigrated from Russia and Poland in search of a better life. His mom, Lizzie, continued the family's legacy, while his dad, Morris, founded a scrap metal company. Ed learned the meaning of hardship at a young age as a member of a tight-knit Jewish community during the Great Depression. Although Ed's parents were devout Orthodox Christians, he was hell-bent on going his own way. He felt he needed to sound different if he desired a greater life, so he worked hard to eradicate his brother's strong accent. It was a baby step toward becoming someone else, while still holding on to his roots. Ed didn't really join the drama club while he was at Wyandotte High School. Rather, he discovered his calling in the classroom and eventually became a radio broadcaster. He cherished the unique worlds that his voice could conjure. Even Flynn might be fooled into thinking he was a celebrity by just listening to his voice, despite his earlier admission that he was too unassuming to be famous. He likely laughed off a teacher's comment, "You can't make a living at it," when he was winning Emmys years later. Ed had largely figured out his future by the time he graduated in 1947, but he was still unsure of his exact destination. He attended the University of Chicago after finishing high school and appeared in little theater productions, but things were never easy for him. In little time at all, he was hanging steel hooks at an Indiana factory, working hot assembly lines for Ford and GM, and navigating the hectic streets of Chicago as a cab driver. He dabbled with selling encyclopedias for a while, but he eventually left the industry due to his aversion to the manipulative tactics used in sales. Even though he became more jaded and tough over the years, he gained a unique insight into the struggles faced by working people. In every role he ever portrayed, he would bring that authenticity. A new chapter in Ed's life began in 1951. While the Korean War was in full swing, he was recruited and sent to France to serve in the Army Signal Corps rather than into combat. Typing schedules and paperwork was his straightforward job. It wasn't the splendor he had hoped for, but it was better in the end. He became active with Army theater organizations while serving and appeared in plays that went across Europe. Performing in front of live audiences was an eye-opening experience for Ed, who finally understood that acting wasn't a hobby, but rather his life's calling. Ed had changed by the time he returned to Chicago in 1953. He co-founded the Playwrights Theater Company with a handful of other artists. The work was vital, it was honest, raw, and full of energy, but they weren't renowned, and the money was cheap. Ed had other ideas even as the group veered into improvised theater. He took a risk by relocating to New York in 1955. The door to opportunity has finally opened in New York. As the cunning Jonathan Peachum, he secured a significant role in an off-Broadway staging of the Three-Penny Opera. The show was so popular that it ran for several seasons. Although Ed's regular salary kept him afloat in the cutthroat New York business, he began to feel restless and worried that he was losing touch with what it meant to be an actor after a while. He sought for more demanding assignments. Thus, he quit the program. Face of a Hero, which he co-starred in with Jack Lemmon, had his Broadway debut not long after. This should have been a watershed event, but the play bombed at the box office. Ed started taking on TV parts because he had to support a growing family. Although he had dabbled in television in 1957 with Studio One, he now dove headfirst into it. Despite pursuing more steady employment, he continued to pursue his passion for live theater by juggling modest roles on television with performances in early Shakespeare in the Park plays. After realizing that New York wasn't going to cut it, Ed uprooted his life and headed west to Los Angeles in 1961, hoping that television would open him more opportunities. He was one of those people whose features were instantly recognizable throughout the 60s, but whose names were unknown to most. His extensive television career includes roles as villains, authority figures, and tough guys in series such as The Fugitive, Gunsmoke, Mission Impossible, and The Untouchables. Even though he was always busy, achieving true fame remained elusive. Ed, who was in his 30s by the decade's close, was struggling to provide for his family, while also questioning his own success. Perhaps it was time for him to retire from acting entirely, he began to wonder. Then, in 1970, he found out that Mary Tyler Moore was casting for a new TV program. Lou Grant, a no-nonsense, tough guy journalist, played the role. On his first try, Ed failed the audition. He begged for another shot, and this time he succeeded. The results of his test with Mary Tyler Moore were shocking, though. It was said that Mary asked the producers, "Are you sure?" while looking at them anxiously. They were unhesitating. Their words, "That's your Lou Grant," signaled a game-changing choice. Asner famously said, "You've got spunk," during his audition. He nearly lost his chance when he said, "I hate spunk." His delivery was so forceful that it frightened everyone in the room. Feeling certain that he had lost the job, he walked to his car thereafter. In a daring turn of events, he retreated upstairs and demanded to see the producer's vision for Lou Grant's portrayal. He was given a further opportunity. No one could have imagined anybody else playing Lou except Asner and Mary Tyler Moore when they read together this time. The connection was that good. Mary always refuted rumors that she had doubts about him at initially. Asner said years later that they thought he could have ordered the audience to jump over a cliff when they delivered the spunk phrase live. The real-life, diligent journalists that Asner respected served as inspiration for the character of Lou Grant, who was not a made-up creation. Lou may have been a TV newsman, but he had the soul of a long-serving newspaper man. The realistic approach of All the President's Men served as inspiration for the creation of the Lou Grant spin-off, which included the character's backstory to match the harsh newspaper environment. Asner was very dedicated to his work. He once said that he compared himself to a high-quality musical instrument, always prepared to play when the time was right. Viewers were deeply moved by his combination of warmth and firmness. Repurposing the character for the reboot was groundbreaking for television. The cast members formed genuine bonds behind the scenes. The greatest ensemble he has ever worked with, according to Asner. His friendship with Gavin MacLeod and other co-stars shone through both in the film and in real life. At the end of the play, Lou said, "I treasure you people," which made the audience feel like they were more than just a number. They were a real family. Award after award went to Asner's efforts. His performance as Mary Tyler Moore's Lou Grant on The Mary Tyler Moore Show earned him 3 Emmys. He made light of the fact that he was competing with younger, more attractive performers like Ted Knight and Rob Reiner at one event. He had everyone in the audience laughing when he said that he now had 2 Emmy statuettes at home and threatened to give the Academy first dibs on any additional they might have. Knowing that he would be nothing more than a nice face without the authors, Asner always acknowledged them first. When he became the first actor in Emmy history to win for the same role in both a comedy and a drama, his charisma and brilliance took him to new heights. The launch of Lou Grant, a serious 1-hour drama in 1977, was a watershed moment for television. Lou left his job at a television station to work for the Los Angeles Tribune. Inspired by the forthright reporting in All the President's Men, the showrunners wanted more than simply another sitcom. They wanted to do something daring. A touch more solemn and mild-mannered, yet very relatable, was Lou. His newfound circle of acquaintances included photographers, reporters, and a formidable newspaper owner named Margaret Pynchon, whose character was inspired on actual women who held prominent positions in the industry. This time around, the program didn't hold back on the comedy. Instead, it spoke about serious topics and featured tales that made viewers think. On Monday nights, Lou Grant dared to do what other television shows were scared to do. Topics deemed too taboo for prime time, such as nuclear threats, mental illness, child abuse, prostitution, and homosexual rights, were discussed. They demonstrated not just the issues, but also the difficulty journalists had in accurately reporting them. It was authentic. It wasn't spectacular. Instead of being simply another television show, Lou Grant served as a mirror reflecting society by giving viewers a unique glimpse into the core values and ethics of journalism. Among the first few episodes to run, Nazi sent shockwaves across the public. Based on a real incident from the 1960s, it depicted a neo-Nazi commander who was actually Jewish. The show used real footage from Nazi propaganda films and featured a chilling performance by Peter Weller. Although it made some advertisers and viewers feel uneasy, reviewers lauded its courageous approach. Rather than shocking, it aimed to provoke thought on hatred, identity, and the darker aspects of human nature. Over the years, Asner achieved a feat never before seen. He won Emmys for Lou Grant in 2 different capacities: as a humorous boss on a comedy and as a solemn editor in a drama. He won a total of 7 Emmys by 1980, including those for Rich Man, Poor Man, and Roots. No one had ever done that before or since him. His remarkable versatility proved that any tale may benefit from an authentic and well-developed character. Despite Asner's meteoric rise to fame in 1980 owing to Lou Grant, a more significant event was unfolding behind the scenes that summer. In a huge walkout against the studios, some 67,000 artists refused to work. While other famous people kept silent, Asner spoke up. On the picket lines, he stopped trying to blend in and started shouting his opinion. As he led demonstrations, cameras showed him standing alongside actors who were struggling to make ends meet while others lived like kings. "The stars will make it through the strike," he said, but the performers who really worked on the shows would not. The 94-day strike postponed television seasons and the Emmys. Asner went from being a famous actor to the face of a new wave of activism in Hollywood by the time it concluded. Asner advocated for something that stunned nearly everyone in the sector just after the strike ended. His request for a merger with the Screen Extras Guild came in December 1981, only weeks after he became president of the Screen Actors Guild. He thought that the performers would have more influence against the studios if they banded together. Many veterans, Charlton Heston included, battled him fiercely. Meeting tempers flared, lawsuits were discussed, and Asner adamantly wanted all SAG members, not just Hollywood ones, to vote by mail. "You're either a union member or you're not," he stated, with no pretense. Despite widespread support for the merger, it ultimately fell short of the necessary level of approval. The concept would not reappear for many years. Many predicted that his political stances would jeopardize his acting career, but he nevertheless managed to defeat more conservative contenders and became SAG president in November 1981. He was indifferent. He had already made it plain to thousands of union members in Los Angeles that he would stand up for their rights. Regular performers desired change, and his victory proved it. 2 years later, Asner managed to gain re-election with an even wider margin, even though the scandals were becoming worse. At the same time, Asner wasn't only bringing up labor rights. When air traffic controllers went on strike in August 1981, and President Reagan dismissed them all, Asner turned up at airports to protest with them, an action that nearly no other celebrity dared to do. He advocated on their behalf and helped gather funds for their families. Asner was convinced that unions could not survive individually, but many thought he was insane to challenge Reagan. After that, the turning point arrived. Asner presented a $25,000 check to medical relief for civilians ensnared in El Salvador's civil conflict in February 1982 while standing on the steps of the State Department. Instead of just a face in the throng, he was surrounded by reporters. His criticism of American engagement in the conflict was vehement, and he warned that the United States was supporting the wrong side. The reaction was immediate and strong. An actor with beliefs, Asner was suddenly portrayed as a dangerous extremist when his speech made headlines and infuriated Washington elites. The fact was that a nun had shown Asner disturbing images of civilian killings in El Salvador, which drew him into the issue there. In spite of his shock and anger, he consented to assist medical aid for El Salvador in their fundraising efforts. Penny Marshall and Howard Hess were among the celebrities that accompanied him. They were quite explicit that their help was for medical supplies exclusively, and not for weaponry. Unfortunately, many now saw Asner as a traitor, and the damage was done. Worse yet, Asner had failed to explicitly state that he was speaking in his own capacity. Everything he stated while serving as SAG president appeared to be the union's official stance. He convened a news conference following the controversy and acknowledged his error in failing to draw that boundary. Nonetheless, he remained steadfast in his assertion of the freedom to speak out. The SAG board decided nearly overwhelmingly to retain him, despite attempts by Charlton Heston and others to recall him. His destiny was finally sealed at that same moment. Asner knew he had blown it the second he impulsively said, "If it's the government that the people choose, let them have it," in response to a reporter's question on what he would do if El Salvador's people elected a communist government. The conservative media dug in, frequently paraphrasing him, and painted him as someone who sympathized with communists. Anonymized threats forced the authorities to increase security around him and his family. The assaults were planned in advance. A new conservative organization wasted no time in launching a boycott of Lou Grant. People were trying to get advertisers to remove their ads and get viewers to turn off the TV broadcast. The Jane Fonda of Latin America was one of Asner's detractors' terms, and Reagan himself was critical of the actor. Coordinated and harsh was the campaign. After Asner's political stances lost him his program and almost his career, producers pleaded with him to remain silent. But it was too late. A few time later, all of Kimberly-Clark's advertising from Lou Grant was withdrawn. The company has 2 plants in El Salvador. The Wall Street Journal stated thereafter that the decision occurred immediately following Asner's fundraiser. Thus, the timing was certainly not coincidental. Maureen Ware, the director of public relations for the firm, refuted accusations of a political bias when questioned about the matter, but few bought his denial. The reader received an unfiltered response from Kimberly-Clark, stating that the corporation has removed all advertisements from the show after writing a good letter regarding Lou Grant. The timing made it impossible to accept Kimberly-Clark's official explanation that it had nothing to do with politics. There was more to come. Other major marketers joined Kimberly-Clark in pulling out. Not only that, but Vidal-Sassoon and Cadbury also withdrew their backing. Conservative organizations began secretly pressuring the show's sponsors in the spring of 1982, particularly in light of Asner's role in the El Salvador cause. Even CBS President William Paley was approached by Vidal-Sassoon's president to discuss the escalating situation. Companies like Cadbury and Vidal-Sassoon attempted to explain their ad removal decisions to viewers, but their justifications seemed weak. On the other hand, John J. The situation was further complicated by Le Boutelier. In 50,000 letters, he demanded a boycott of the show's sponsors and compared Asner to Jane Fonda. Advertisers began to pull out one by one, clearly frightened of becoming swept up in the political tempest. Even with 13 Emmys, 2 Golden Globes, and a Peabody, a television program might be susceptible to sponsor anxiety, as seen by this wave of corporate pullouts. Then, the most devastating hit occurred. The cancellation of Lou Grant by CBS was announced on May 18, 1982, following 5 successful seasons. They said it was due to declining ratings, but many were skeptical. The show had a respectable audience and was placed 27th a year ago. The ratings may have fallen from 19.6 to 16.6, but they were still far higher than those of many other canceled series. The fact that CBS abruptly ended the show only 3 months following Asner's contentious fundraising campaign cast doubt on the whole affair. CBS brass denied any involvement from the political sphere. It was hardly a show you would want to hold on to, but it had nothing to do with Ed Asner's politics, one executive claimed, but few were convinced. The cancellation of Lou Grant in 1982 was the final straw for Asner's career. Suddenly, he felt as though the television business had abandoned him, despite his status as one of the most revered faces in the industry. Even though CBS never directly stated it, critics and insiders knew that Asner's political beliefs were the reason his program was canceled. CBS didn't do a great job hiding it. TV reviewer Tom Shales put it best. Asner was certain of it. In retrospect, he admitted, "Oh, I don't think there's any question that politics played a big part." The turning point in his life occurred when, as Screen Actors Guild president, he blocked an award for Ronald Reagan. Reagan had just destroyed the union representing air traffic controllers, and Asner couldn't sit on his hands and act like nothing had occurred when people questioned him about it. He came to terms with the fact that he had lost his program and failed to defend his beliefs years later. However, the penalty did not end with the loss of Lou Grant. Asner was finding himself more excluded from Hollywood, despite the show's 13 Emmys for addressing significant societal concerns, like as LGBTQ rights and nuclear dangers. This once celebrated spot now treats him like an annoyance. It was as if he were back in the days of the Hollywood blacklist, when saying what was on his mind might ruin his career. The air was thick with terror. All his life, Asner was attentive to the issue of censorship. He continued to oppose Congress for decades after that, and he even attended a sold-out ceremony at the Writers Guild of America to commemorate the 70th anniversary of the Hollywood 10. Not only did he experience hostile attitudes in the 1980s, but he was also the target of damage at his residence and the SAG offices, as well as death threats, particularly from radical anti-Castro organizations in Miami. To make an appearance on a radio broadcast, he was even accompanied by a bodyguard. For a guy who had millions of admirers, it was a devastating collapse. Not only did the criticism affect Asner personally, but it also served as a message to others in the industry. Be vocal, and you may be held accountable. During the Reagan years, Asner spoke out for El Salvador's right to self-rule, which led to immediate backlash, according to his friend Kim Fellner, who was a SAG employee at the time. Having strong political views might quickly ruin a career. Asner was unapologetic when asked straight out whether the cancellation of Lou Grant was a political move. "Sure, no problem," he responded. People fled violence in nations like Honduras and El Salvador because of U.S. policy, he later pointed out. This led to today's immigration dilemma. Asner stayed steadfast no matter what. He joined the Democratic Socialists of America and publicly supported progressive issues throughout his life. He summed it up by saying, "I felt very good doing it." During his reflection, "I felt a great sense of pride. He gradually recovered, going on to become one of the most prestigious Emmy-winning performers of all time. Out of 17 nominations, he won 7 Emmys, which is more than any male performer in history. 3 during his time on The Mary Tyler Moore Show, and 2 from when the role of Lou Grant evolved into a serious drama, total 5 of these accolades. It solidified Asner's position as one of the rare performers to get Emmys for dual roles in comedy and drama. Rich Man, Poor Man, and Roots, 2 massive 1970s miniseries, were his other Emmy-winning performances. Working tirelessly, Asner never ceased. He then joined the world of cinema and voice acting, most known for his roles as Santa Claus in Elf and Carl Fredricksen in Pixar's Up. Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip, The Good Wife, Cobra Kai, Dead to Me, The Practice, and countless more TV series continued to include him even as he aged. Asner always showed up and gave his all whenever he had a decent part. Asner had a firm stance on politics right up to his death. Even though most Hollywood insiders were terrified of the label socialist, he openly identified as an old-time leftist. A powerful nation must ensure access to health care, education, affordable housing, and food for everyone. A belief that Asner fought for long before Bernie Sanders or Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez gained notoriety. When questioned about the case involving SAG's health fund and its reforms that negatively impact senior performers, he simply stated, "That's right, I'm one of the leaders in that," in one of his last interviews. He continued to battle until the age of 91. There were few performers like Ed Asner, as put best by his buddy Gabriel Carter, who was also the president of the Screen Performers Guild.